Hey guys, this is another episode of Politics and Tricks. I'm your host, Dax. I just want to talk about the recent Hunter Biden interview he had with Good Morning America. But first, I want to kind of backtrack somewhat. I had a previous video where I talked about Hunter Biden's business dealings, one of them being with Burisma Holdings, a gas company in Ukraine. He was on the board of directors and was receiving some news outlets are saying $50,000 a month, and some other news outlets are saying $80,000 a month. Nonetheless, he is or was a lawyer, so he was a part of their legal department. How convenient. Nonetheless, he doesn't speak Ukraine, or the Ukraine language. He does not speak. And also, he was getting paid 3 times more than any other board member would have received for that position. So you have to ask yourself a question: how does a person with little to no background or experience can receive so much money? Then you also have to look at the previous statement that was made by Joe Biden when he was in office, stating that if a certain attorney was not fired, then the country would not receive any U.S. funds. So basically, that's the background with one of the business dealings Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son, has been a part of, which is the Burisma Holdings gas company. But just to give a recap of it, in April 2014, Biden's son, Hunter, joined the board. Hunter served on the board until early 2019, which was, I want to say, April? April, he pulled himself off the board. The thing is, at the time, the company said Hunter would be in charge of the legal unit and would provide support for the company among international organizations. You got to be leery of that word, international. Hunter told New York Times that the news release was not accurate. Hunter, Joe Biden's son, the news release was not accurate, and he was never in charge of the company's legal affairs. You see how there's so much of, well, Hunter says this, Joe Biden says this, the paper says this. Nothing is on the same page as far as the story is concerned. So many cracks in it. Nonetheless, he joined the company about a month after Russia annexed Crimea. So this was during the Obama administration. A catalytic moment that continues to put the U.S. at odds with Russia and is linked to ongoing conflict in eastern Ukraine. During his time with Burisma, Hunter reportedly received a compensation up to $50,000 a month. This is one outlet that's been saying, which is the Business Insider, is saying he received $50,000. Some others have been saying, like the New York Times, it's $80,000. Nonetheless, he received a whole lot of money. From the start, Hunter's role at Burisma was criticized by ethics watchdogs as a conflict of interest for his father. So, break that down even more. Your father's vice president of the United States, but you are using your name and your father's clout or his position to make business deals that are connected to the U.S. government, which your father is a part of. It doesn't look good. It always seems like it's going to be some type of underhanded dealings. But let me finish. Criticized by ethnic watchdogs as a conflict of interest to his father, who was still vice president at the time and heavily focusing on pressuring Ukraine to do a better job at rooting out corruption. Picture that. Look at the irony of that. His father been in charge to root out corruption, but his son and him is a part of the corruption. But some ethnic watchdogs at the time also said that unless there was clear evidence Hunter got the job to influence U.S. foreign policy, there was no cause for concern. So what they're saying is there is no legal issues because they've yet to proven that it was influencing U.S. foreign policy by him having these business dealings. His hiring by Burisma was seen as an attempt by the company to bolster its image and the perception it had strong ties with the U.S. as the world vilified Russia for its annexation of Crimea. Yoko M. Hira, a professor of political science at the University of Wisconsin at Madison, an expert on Russia and Eurasia, told the Washington Post, "I think there's a conflict of interest, even if it doesn't break any laws." It is definitely a conflict of interest. You can't have a natural gas company in a whole nother foreign country making deals with your son while you're the vice president. It's a big deal. It's the vice president who is the point person for the Obama administration. That's the key. Joe Biden was the point of contact pertaining to the Ukraine policy, but your son works for the biggest gas company in Ukraine. Conflict. With that said, Hunter has never been accused of wrongdoing until now regarding his work with Burisma. Hunter also said he only had a brief conversation with his father about Burisma, which did not go into details about the deal. Joe Biden has said he's learned his son rolled the company from news reports. This is all BS, 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 BS. How do you know your son? If my son making 50, 80 grand a month, especially if I knew I got him a job as an admin for the Navy Reserve that he got fired from because he was caught with drugs, and now all of a sudden he's raking in 50, 80 grand a month, trust me, it may not have been an immediate conversation, because all this stuff was in newspapers prior to Joe Biden announcing his candidacy for president. All this stuff was in newspapers. So you trying to tell me you didn't have a conversation with your son about this? Especially when it affects your job, and also the fact that you were over rooting out corruption with the country, that he's actually working for a gas company in the largest country, in the country that you're trying to root out corruption for. It doesn't work that way. But again, that's with the Burisma company. So the second business deal he had was a Chinese equity fund. Chinese equity fund. So equity fund, ladies and gentlemen, is basically a fund banks open up. They may give them to stockbrokers, many other people on Wall Street, as far as what they can do concerning reinvesting money. So with the Chinese bank, Hunter Biden has been a board member of the BHR Equity Investment Fund Management Company, a Chinese state-backed private equity firm, since late 2013. Hunter Biden was rolling the dough. According to the New York Times and the South China Morning Post, in 2017, Biden's son, Hunter Biden, bought 10% of the company for $420,000. The Times reported the $1.5 billion equity fund was trying to raise in 2014 to invest outside of China, right? So he has a Chinese bank is in China. They started an equity fund to raise funds globally, but also the Chinese bank dumped $1.5 billion into the equity fund. Granted, the only way Hunter Biden gets to get any piece of that is when he cashes out of the fund. So funds are like CDs, they are like IRAs. The objective is for you to save or for you to put your money into a pot and watch it grow and blossom with investments or interest, and then cash out 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years later. That's how they do it. But it also allows them, when they put it in a fund, it allows them to hide the money so sophisticated to whereas it's not reported in their personal bank accounts, but in their business accounts. The sum appeared in Secret Empires, the $1.5 billion, a book published last year, criticized by Hunter Biden's business activities. Peter Schweizer, the author, said BHR would seal a highly unusual $1.5 billion deal with funding from the Chinese government. Excuse me, y'all, about that. Clearly, people see me recording, they're just walking by having frivolous conversations. Anyway, the author of BHR said, Peter Schweizer, back to my point, Peter Schweizer, who wrote a book called Secret Empires, in reference to the Biden scandal, we can call it that, would seal a highly unusual $1.5 billion dealing with the funding from the Chinese government after Biden flew into Beijing aboard Air Force Two at the time. So Biden flew into China. 10 days later, his son got $1.5 billion. So why are you flying into China? You're flying into China just to say hello? No, you're not. You're making business deals. Thursday, it has been stated Hunter Biden used his position as the vice president's son to secure the money from a China state-owned bank and made millions in the process, per the South China Morning Post. But Biden's lawyer, George Messer, said earlier that Biden never got paid for sitting on the BHR board and has not received any payouts. Yeah, he hasn't personally received any payouts, but his company has. Also, the bank in China has removed all the photos of Hunter Biden's from its website. South China Morning Post reported on Saturday. Now, this is all coming from the Business Insider. So that's just actually a recap of his dealings, his business dealings. Now, recently, yesterday, Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, came out and did an interview with Good Morning America. And if you go and listen to the interview, you can tell it was a scripted interview, meaning you're only allowed to ask this question. This is the response you're going to get. You can tell it was all done by lawyers and PR people to make sure they were saying the right things and putting out the right information. So, moving on to the interview that he did with Good Morning America. But before I start that, I want you guys remember, tonight is the Democratic debate, and his father's going to be on the stage with several other candidates. So they claim they did not work with his father's campaign on when he should have this interview, but he did it mysteriously the day before the actual debate, which is tonight. So let's go into the interview that he's had with Good Morning America about his financial dealings. So Hunter Biden, son of the former vice president and leading Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden, defended his overseas work in his first television interview after months of political attacks, but expressed regret over how it's been used to disparage his father. Hunter Biden, 49, is at the center of perhaps the largest scandal yet to confront U.S. President Donald Trump. Trump faces impeachment inquiry stemming from a call he made to Ukraine president to urge him to investigate the Biden family over Hunter Biden's involvement with the Burisma Group gas company. Hunter Biden said he did not do anything wrong at all in an interview with ABC News that aired on Tuesday, but conceded he may have provided an opening to attacks on his father. In retrospect, I think it was poor judgment on my part. You damn right it was poor judgment. I gave a hook to some very unethical people to act in illegal ways to try to do some harm to my father, talking about President Trump. That's where I made my mistake. So I take full responsibility for that. Did I do anything improper? No, not in any way, he said. Days earlier, Hunter Biden said through his lawyer that he was stepping down from the board of the Chinese company that has been a subject of criticism from Trump and his allies. He also said he would not work for a foreign-owned company if his father is elected president in 2020. How convenient. The television interview aired on the same day Joe Biden would appear on stage the Democratic presidential debates, where he will face off against a dozen other contenders for the party's nomination. Joe Biden currently leads the most public opinion polls in the Democratic nominating contest and most polls in a hypothetical matchup between Trump in November 2020. So, as I stated before, this is his interview with ABC Good Morning America. Now he said the only thing he feel like he's at fault for is that he gave ammunition to Trump and his allies to go after him and his father for doing inappropriate business dealings while his father was vice president of the United States. So here's my thing: if there's nothing wrong, if there's nothing wrong with the situation, then why are you resigning? He said, well, it's a 5-year cap, basically 5 years. Being on the board, you have to renew it or either step down, and that's what he decided to do. How convenient again. And again, with a fund, an equity fund, you only get the money when you cash out. So when his lawyer was stating, sorry guys, when you have an equity fund, you only get paid when you cash out. They don't talk about that. They also don't talk about the fact that with the Burisma Holding gas company, Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, has a company of himself, which was known for, consulting fees and consulting business to the gas company. He still has 10% stake in the company. He's still best friends with the CFO of the company. You see what I'm saying? So all this that he's talking about, trying to make it seem like he's removed himself from the situation, he's still attached to it and is due for a payout very soon because he was attached previously to it. So it's a whole bunch of crap, a whole bunch of mess. But for some reason, Joe Biden is still leading in the polls, even though this doesn't look good. Now, is this illegal for his son to be doing this? No, not really, because they're hiding the money. But is it inappropriate? Yes, it's very much so inappropriate. Because again, you had your father in charge of rooting out corruption of a country, Ukraine, and you're working for the Ukraine gas company, the largest gas company in the country. You're working for, you're on the board, and you're getting paid between $50,000 and $80,000 a month, which is 3 times higher than anyone else would get for that position. What does that tell you, ladies and gentlemen? What does that tell you? So, being that the interview was given today, the debates come on tonight. I'm going to do another video in reference to all of this information, because now they're saying which person on tonight's debate stage is going to go after Joe Biden for possible corruption, possible inappropriate business dealings from his son. Who is going to go after him? That is the question. So I will be covering the Democratic debates, and it will probably have a few pieces tied in with his son, Hunter Biden, and his dealings and so on. But it's kind of, like I said, it's kind of convenient that he's doing all of this right before the debates. And Joe Biden is still leading the polls, and he's also the person he's the person that is polling very well with the African American community. African Americans, hands down, vote Democrat every year, every election, all the time. So out of all the candidates, Joe Biden has the most backing from the African American community, and it has not died down, which is strange to me. Nonetheless, he's still leading in the polls. This really hasn't hurt his campaign, but until somebody else on that stage or one of his peers that is running against him for the Democratic nomination, until someone comes out and say something about this, he's going to continue to lead in the polls and skate by with no type of scratches. Y'all tell me what you think. Click subscribe, click the notification button, like this video, comment on this video, tell me what you think. I just want to bring you guys an update on the situation with Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden's interview, but also his business dealings and what he said in the interview itself. So let me know what you think, guys. This has been Politics and Tricks, coming to you live again on this rainy day with a lot of talking people. You guys have a great day. Peace.